Hello and welcome everyone. Hello everyone. We are back with yet another session of Lottie Files Bangalore from Lottie Files. And so good to see you all. Please let us know in the comment section where you are from and how are you feeling today? Pumped up, right? Excited about motion design? Please let us know in the comment section. Tell us your name, where you're from, and how are you feeling today? Go everyone. We look forward to see comments from all of you. We are going to have an exciting evening today, and we have tons of different learnings that we are going to have. There's Nikita in the comment section. Hi Nikita, hope you will have something new to learn today, and we cannot wait to get started. I think last time we were live was somewhere around March, and it's been a long time. We do apologize for that, but here we are back, and we will have some of the fantastic sessions from our speaker. And there is a small new news. Our community is growing. We're going to be talking about that as well. Please stay till the end of the session because we are going to be having some exciting prizes for today's session. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. So you all know me. I'm Shreya. I'm Lottie community organizer for Lottie Files Bangalore. And I'm your host and your friend from the last session. You may have seen me around from the last session, but you know about me. I work for Flipkart, and it's been lovely hosting all the community events for Lottie Files. I am always been a motion design enthusiast. I find all the opportunities to incorporate motion design into my products, and I'm sure even you folks do that. So, and as I promised, our community is growing. We have someone new, and let's welcome that person. His name is Kashish. Hey Kashish, hello. Say hello to our
Hey,
friends.
hi, folks. I'm Kashish, and I'm really excited to be part of Lottie community in Bangalore. And I have recently joined Lottie community Bangalore. It's been 1 or 2 months, and it's been a super awesome journey with working with Shreya and the entire Lottie team. And we are so excited to bring such sessions for you and to learn with you also. And little bit about myself. Right now, I'm working with Microsoft as a product designer. In past, I was working with Shreya in Flipkart only. And why I joined Lottie community, there's bit selfish reason because I think motion gives life to design, and we all know that motion is worth more than 1,000 pictures. So motion brings accessibility, discoverability, and purpose to a design. So that was my biggest reason to join Lottie community and share my knowledge with all of you. So that's what I will be doing along with Shreya and other Lottie community members. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kashish. Please feel free to take the session ahead and introduce our audience with what are we going to talk about today.
So this time we will be having a session, a wonderful session on how we can give life to our apps using After Effects and Lottie. And this is a really powerful session because lot of beginners struggle with this, like how they can make their designs having more interactivity, more purpose, and more discoverability. So this is the basic thought for this session. Without that's what we are trying to bring this time. And we have an exciting guest. He works really good in motion. He is awesome person. I know him personally also. So why what we are waiting for, let's go ahead with the session.
Thank
And
you, Kashish.
before that I guess we have a fun game, and I think Shreya will be taking care of it. Go ahead, Shreya.
Thank you so much, Kashish. So, hey, folks, we have a small game for all of you all. If you are from design background or development background, you would be knowing some of these terms. They are directly, indirectly related to motion design. So, we need right answers. And hey, if you give us the right answers in the comment section, then we have something very exciting for you. So let's start with the first word. So the trick here is that we are going to be showing you a word, but some of the alphabets will be missing from this. You have to guess the word after I'm giving you the clues about that word. So let's start with the first word. Okay, so this word, this is something which all of us do when we want to create dash between when a user clicks a button to when the output comes. What is the transition like? What is it that they do? They dash with the product to create a motion or an animation. So, what is this word? It starts from I. Let us know in the comment section. How are all of you? All we need answers from you. It's one word which describes the user dash with the product. When they click on it, what is it called? What is a click called? What's a hover called? What's a yeah? We have answers coming in from first person to give the answer is Shamruz. Hey Shamruz, congratulations for giving us the right answer. We have it from Nikita as well. We have from Varun, Febrin, all of you. You guys are amazing. I didn't expect so many folks to give the right answers, but yeah, I mean, experts out here. Yeah. So, yeah, let's move on to the next word. What is the next word? Okay, so this word is when you as designer, when you're creating screens and you're connecting them with interaction, what is it do you finally create to test it out with the users or show it out to your audience? It is a representation of the actual product, and we have the right answer from Hemant again. Hi Hemant, it's fantastic that we're having so many correct answers with very minimal clues. So we have Hemant, Santosh, Juresh, Shambhu. All of you all are giving us the right answers. So I'm so excited. I am very excited. My adrenaline is in some other level now, seeing all of you all giving answers in the comment section. We all are fantastic designers, developers, aren't we? Let's go to the next word. So this word is something which is very important in motion design. So until you understand this concept, you won't be able to create the actual effects that you bring in motion design. It's how your interaction or your motion interactivity would change over dash, over a period of time. Oh, we have the right answers already coming in. Hemant again, and we have Charvi, we have Mohammad, Shamruz, Varun, and Surya. I'm thrilled to see the responses. I mean, everyone knows all the answers. Although I tried to make it little tricky by having it timing and not time, but still everyone is just so excited. Yes, Gayatri, Hemant is a smart guy.
He
So
is leading the session with the good
yeah,
answers.
you're leading the session, Heyman. Thanks so much. Let's move on. And the right answer is timing. So let me a little bit tell you about Lottie Bangalore. Our objective is to build a community to connect folks like you who are so excited as me and Kashish in the session today. And we want to bring all the enthusiasts together, bring some awesome learning for them. And the community is 100% inclusive. We want folks from across the globe to come in and join us to learn motion design. So, what do you feel about this? Do you think we have been doing good? Let us know in the comment section while we move on to the next part of our session. Kashish, over to you.
Thanks, Shreya. So let us know what is actually Lottie File. So Lottie is a platform where like designers, developer, engineers, animator, motion designers can come together and create some wonderful stuff. You can design anything you want with the help of Lottie and After Effects. So I will show you some use cases how Lottie can be utilized in your next big project. So Lottie can be utilized in in-app animations, websites, blogs. They can be even used in animated stickers. You can actually go to Lottie files and download some stickers for Telegram and WhatsApp now. You can even utilize power of Lottie in AR and VR. And I'm a personal fan of Lottie. I have used Lottie in so many scenarios that like user loves. When users see the motion, they love and they understand it also. So it helps not in just making the design delightful, it also makes the design more informative and more understandable. So yeah, I think let's move ahead.
Yeah.
So now I would like to tell how many companies are actually using the power of Lottie. So like more than 1 lakh companies are actually using Lottie in lot of scenarios: Google, Microsoft, Flipkart, are being the key player. Like they have so many good stuff around Lottie that like people are thriving for that. So I would love to hear some Lottie stories from your company, and do let us know what Lottie brings in your design. I think we can
Awesome.
go ahead.
Sure. You just- so now we are going to show you a very short video which will summarize what all Kashish said, and that's going to help you learn a little bit more about Lottie. So let's have a quick look at this short video.
I've got a big fat drum, big fat drum. I've got a big fat drum, pounding so bad. I've got a big fat drum, big fat drum. I've got a big fat, big. Listen, yeah, clap. You ready? Let's go.
Awesome, awesome. Let us know what you think about this video. Did you get excited enough? And now we are moving on to the next phase of our, that is the talk from our speaker. Over to you, Kashish.
Now, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Harsh Soni. Harsh is currently working with Flipkart. He is a motion design advocate, and he's really good with the motion design. I have seen his work personally. He does a really incredible job. And one little more thing about him, like that he draws super awesome and cute doodles and cartoons. He's really a good artist in the other part of his life. So I would now give the stage to Harsh and to start this session.
Please welcome Harsh, folks, to our session. Over to you, Harsh. Stage is all
Hey, hi,
yours.
Harsh.
Hey, hi, Kashish. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the amazing introduction, Kashish and Shreya. Wow, those games were really interesting there. I wanted to jump and play with you guys, right? And truly, Hemant will be giving most of the answers, like always. Right. And hello, everyone who's joined our session today. Welcome to the session. Today's session would be a bit about UI animation and what role does animation play in a product designer's life. I'll start with telling you a little about me. I'm a product designer. I work with Flipkart, an amazing company which is doing some amazing work in the Indian ecosystem. I believe in open learning, and I really love sharing my knowledge and resources with everyone. And I believe sessions like these really help spread the knowledge and learning with the world. I think the last session that we had with one of the previous speakers was amazing, and I really learned a lot, and I felt that I should also contribute in any way possible to this community, because you guys are doing some great work, Kashish and Shreya. So let's begin. Let's see how to build these amazing interactions if you're a product designer or if you're a developer who's looking to change things within your own company or within your own app, right? Let's see how do we build these amazing interactions. So coming to the case of interactions, if you look at the word interaction, every interaction, it consists of two very important mechanics. The first mechanic is the trigger, which is basically the user input, whatever the user says or does on the app, the way they interact. And the second part is animation. So the difference between these two is interaction. Trigger is more about what happens, what does the user do, or trigger tells you if this happens. Uh, the animation tells you what happens, right? The way things animate or come into the screen really tells you how things are supposed to be, or they guide you in the ways that things should be. Let's look at trigger first. So what is a trigger? A trigger is any event that begins the animation. So it's like telling the system that, okay, whenever a user does any action, that action can be a tap, a swipe, a long press, a scroll, or a variety of different gestures or interactions that can be there, right? Triggers that can be there. And so basically, a trigger is something that tells the system or the computer to start an animation, right? So that's the entry point of it. Now, coming back to the definition, and now let's look at what is animation and something that we're all here for. And I know, right? You must have heard these words, right? Sometimes you hear animation, sometimes you hear motion, and it's really confusing. Am I an animator, or maybe I'm a motion designer, or what am I, right? So let's understand the difference between these two terms. What is animation and what's motion? So animation is defined as the state of changing any property over some time, right? It can be any property like color, it can be a property like fade, opacity, or any such property in general, or like things expanding or collapsing, anything like that, right? So that's animation, the state of change of any property over time. If you look at motion, and if you remember, we used to read, there was a chapter in, I think, the 8th standard physics, right, which told us that motion is the act of moving something, or the process of being moved, right? So if you look at the differences between these two terms, motion, an object that is animated doesn't really have to move from one place to the other, right? But animation is more of like an umbrella term kind of for motion, right? Or the relationship is something like this: all motion is animation, but not necessarily all animation is motion, right? So now that that question is clear, that what is animation, what is motion, are they different? You know the basic difference, right? But in the real world, we keep using these two terms synonymously. So that was about what is animation. Now let's look at what makes a good animation. What is a good animation, right? This topic, we'll cover why animation is useful, what it means, and now let's just get deeper into this term. What is this question? What is this good animation about, right? So every good animation has two very important characteristics. The first one being the purpose, the why of things. Why does that motion even exist? And the second thing is a bit about the style. The very first rule of any interface animation is that in order for it to exist, there should be a core purpose. The purpose of an animation might be drawn from the UX issue that it's trying to or intended to solve. This UX issue can be anything, like to educate the user and orient the user about the interface. For example, if you're trying to, so what happens in product design in a lot of cases is that you only have a limited UI space, right? That 360 or 720 frame in which you can show something, that small thing in which you have to fit the plethora of features that you want to fitting, right? And when you're trying to fit a large amount of content into a very small space, it really gets hard to fit everything on the screen, right? And that's where animation is used to transition between the layers, to bring the off-screen elements onto the screen, and it also in a way helps reinforce the spatial relationship between the different elements that exist on the whole UI, right? It also creates a mental model of what is out of view, right? This feature for example, in the case that you see on the right, maybe it's telling you that, say, there are more features that are available if you click on this fab. So it's used to educate the users about where everything is on the UI and what is the relationship between the different elements. It allows us to guide tasks, inform the context changes, and animate the context changes with the content. Or the purpose of any animation could be either to direct focus or attention to any particular aspect of the UI. For example, this example that you see on the left, things the fab just came in to show you, hey, I'm there. There is a functionality that's available. If you're scrolling for a long time, hey, I'm available. Just click on me and you can go back to the top. Or in the example on the right, you can see that, hey, something was added and it gets animated and it tells you by not telling you or by not telling it in words. Right. So this animation can very easily be used to grab attention, but that's where we should be very considerate of not overemphasizing on a particular aspect or a particular element, and not to like completely hijack the attention out, just to lay focus on that particular element. The purpose of animation could also be to show the feedback or the cause and effect of things, right? For example, in this case, what you can see is, in the first case, what you can see is the user wanted to type something, but the password was not right, and therefore it was restricting you to do something. And when it was right, it allowed you to do that, right? The other example on the right, that you see, it allows you to understand that, hey, this drag interaction is available to you, and everything else just moves out of the way, and you can just drag and drop things here. Again, talking about feedback, right? I pressed that button and did something happen? I don't know. Did it go to the cart or not? Right? This is another good example to tell you that how animation can be used to give a feedback of whatever the user action is. Not just about the user action, but sometimes if you want to tell the user that, hey, things are still loading up. If something loads really quick, you can just show that right there. If it's taking some time, you can take some more time to load, just to tell that the system is not stuck. It's just still there. It's processing something, and whenever that processing is complete, you would be able to see things. So a lot of purposes, it seems, right? Another purpose of your animation could even be to express the brand image or the brand personality that your brand has, right? So for example, in this case, you can see that the app on the left looks a bit stern. It seems like it's very dependable and it's serious. It wants to get things done, right? While the example on the right seems very friendly, very quirky, very jumpy. We'll also see in the further examples how we can achieve these two different kinds of effects. It can also be used to express your brand, but the only purpose that is not allowed, the core purpose that is not allowed, is just to delight the users, right? Just delight should never be the purpose. The purpose can be a bit more than that. Delight is obviously an after effect of introducing animation. It would anyway be there, just like any design, right? So yeah, that was about the first part, which is the why or the purpose of a good motion. Now let's look at the style, right? Now, what do we mean by style, right? Style is basically telling you that this app that you see on the screen, how does the motion feel or express itself? What that means is, maybe whenever we try to make our app free useful to the user, we want to have a connection with the user, right? Because it's a digital application, right? The way that the app expresses, the way that it moves, really shows you whether it's an energetic app, a friendly app, a sleek app, a strong app, or a very playful app, right? And the way you design your motion also communicates the voice and the tone of your app, right? So it's always important to always match the style, the animation style, to the voice and tone of the brand. These can be things that can come from the marketing team, or like the way that you want to express, describe your brand. These could be these marketing adjectives as well. The way you write your content, the same voice and tone can be used to base your motion as well. Yeah, right. So you can describe your brand in all these different ways: friendly, energetic, and by just changing the way things move on the application, you can create that kind of a personality to the app, right? Now let's look at how do we achieve this kind of style. So the first way in which you can do is easing. And I'd like to explain easing with this example of Devan. If you look at different people around you, right, the way they move tells you a lot about them. This guy's a bit lazy. He just moves really slow. This guy's really fast. He's like always doing something at the same time. He's always moving his hands a lot, right? Right. If you look at people, you also understand that, okay, this probably is a very smooth guy. If you look at Devanand, of course, right, he's a very smooth guy, right? He's always calm. All his moves are in rhythm, right? He's very nazakat se bhara hua, right? Whereas if you look at our Prabhudeva, like everything that he does, even the way he acts, even when he's not dancing, it just seems like it's a very fast, dependable, and actionable kind of a guy, right? So that's what easing is all about. So if you look at it, nothing in nature just starts and stops, right? And things don't move very linearly from one point to the other, right? Everything just accelerates and decelerates as they move, right? You must never have seen any human who just walks, and just stops all right there, right? Without building up the momentum and stopping when they want to stop, right? Decelerate as they stop, and things in nature ease in and ease out in that way. But you must have seen, if you're a product designer, right? There must have been a lot of cases where you know. When you go to your developer, they would tell you, acha, you want to introduce easing into your animation. Okay, we have these four easing options. We have ease in, we have ease out, we have ease in out, uh, and we have linear, right? And you're like, yeah, but I wanted to express my brand and I'm not able to do that, right? So let's look at how we can go beyond these default easing curves that we see on the screen, right? Like the ease in, ease out, and ease in out, and really express our brand through the way things move in and out of the screen. So, for example, in this case, if you look at the model that's coming up onto the center of the screen, right? If it would have just come and stayed there, it would not have expressed any kind of an emotion, right? Or any kind of personality. But since the model comes in and he's like, hey, I'm here, right? Which expresses the fact that this model, it's very energetic, it's friendly, it's very bold, right? It's just coming in, showing that I'm here, hey, I'm here. It's showing a lot of anticipation that way, right? So anticipation and follow through, these two things can be easily achieved through just changing the way things move from one point to the other, and the way that they ease through the time, right? So the easing curve that they've used in this case is the ease back in, and things are just like, instead of starting from that position and just ending there, you just build some momentum and end with a lot of follow through, right? So that's the first use case. Let's look at what most of the examples that we see in most of the apps, right? The ease in outs. So when you look at ease in out, right? This is also animating in a certain way, and it looks very balanced. It looks very measured, right? And things just come in, and you can understand that this is where I am, and this is where I'm supposed to be, and now I leave, right? So you can clearly see that the difference in the motion in these two cases. Sometimes we feel that, okay, you said use easing, right? So I'll always use easing, but not necessarily. You don't always need to animate things a lot, right? If even if you have smaller movements, right? You saw that in both the previous examples, we were just moving things somewhere from the down, and they were coming up, right? But we were not showing the whole trajectory of that element going in and coming out. We were just fading it and showing just the 20% of the journey, and the user was able to understand that, okay, it must have been coming from down there, right? From down the uh, screen, right? So you don't always have to create these long motion in which you express everything, right? The movement can be very simple, and that can be used to achieve a very calm and subtle effect uh, as well, right? And this, again, I'll take the same example to express that. If you see the example on the left, it's just there is a normal or a standard probably easing in and easing out that they've used. Whereas the one on the right, it's more of an ease back in and ease back out, right? Things are just coming in, bouncing up, and then coming back to their real position, right? The motion of the first one is more toned down to allow the users to focus more on the utility of the app, whereas in the second case, it's used to emphasize the energetic and playfulness of the energy and the playfulness of the brand. Now let's look at the second principle, which is one of the most important usability principles. It's usually important for usability, which is called as the duration, the time that it takes for something to move from one place to the other, right? And it's very important because if something is moving too fast, it's very hard to see and it's very dizzying. But if something is very slow, it just feels like very intrusive, right? And it feels like a delay that the user is seeing, right? Right. So the example that you see on the screen, the first one is moving really slow, whereas the second one is just doing the work and just moving from one place to the other, the way it's supposed to. Right. You're still able to see it, the movement, but you just don't have to wait for the whole screen to load up. Right. So now let's understand why we need duration. Right. In a research that was conducted by the Nielsen Normal Group, it was found that it takes about 0.1 second for a user to perceive something as an instant response, and that's why where if you when a user clicks something or and nothing happens and there is no feedback, then we have 10 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds to for us to respond and animate something before the user goes, hey, that didn't respond, did it? uh, if you animate anything which is less than 100 milliseconds, they're going to perceive it, but probably they're not going to see the way it animated, right? So that's something that marks as the beginning of where we should start an ideal animation duration, right? Um, there was another research that was conducted, which told us that on an average it takes 230 milliseconds for a user to perceive something visually, right? This is where the suggested range comes from, and any animation which has a duration of 200 milliseconds would be just within the range to be perceived by an average person. Anything shorter than that, you risk of it being not visually perceived at all, and would completely defeat the purpose of animating it in the first place. Right. So this is where the guidelines for a normal animation comes from. The upper limit should be 1 second. That's when user would start noticing that nothing has happened and nothing is linked with the animation, with the trigger that I pressed or the trigger that I did, the input that I did was happening, right? So this is what the range is. The suggested range is somewhere between 100 milliseconds to 200 to 500 milliseconds. But if you feel that for your users it's more important to show them something before they click on the next item, it totally makes sense to not just very strictly follow these guidelines. But one thing that you should start doing when you start animating is to start documenting the kind of timing that you use for different elements. For example, if a dialog box took 150 milliseconds to animate and come on the screen, the same dialog box the same behavior should carry forward to other dialog boxes as well, wherever they are on the screen, right? Um, uh, Right. So start documenting these, and this would really help you make the app and make the interactions feel more consistent. Because if a dialog box is taking 500 milliseconds on one place, it just feels like that instance was probably a delay of the system, and maybe the app is not running very fast, or it is running slow. Now you must say, okay, Harsh, you told us to document all the things that are there on the screen. Okay, I'll just do this. Every button that's going to animate on my app from now on, it's just going to take 150 milliseconds and not more than that, right? And then there is a situation that comes that one button was at the end of the screen and which has to move all the way to the top, but it's taking 150 milliseconds, but somehow that doesn't look very good. And the reason is because when things travel from one place to the other, we should not look at the duration, but rather look at the velocity in which they move, right? And this is only for motion. Animation, it would not happen in the case of animation, right? So if things are moving from one place to the other, always try to maintain a constant velocity of things. For example, in this case, the first case, the two things have to move and they went shook, right, to the next point, right? Whereas in the first one was like shook and the next one was like, hey, right? They had really had to move really fast. The duration was actually the same, and therefore they took very different speed to move the same distance, right? So we do not want to want the second or the later to happen. We want the first one to happen, and therefore always have an understanding of the speed in which things move. Keep that the same and not the duration. The next very important, it's very important to look at duration also, because things can really become blocking really soon, right? So refrain from making animations that block the user's input. Think of it like a conversation. The best conversations are the one where you feel like the other person is always listening to you and responding to you, right? If they're non-responsive, or if they just do their thing and they're not paying attention, you're likely to trust that person or continue conversing with them, right? The same goes for with any UI interface. If a user starts to realize that their input is being skipped or ignored, the trust between the user and the UI is lost, and the quality of her experience really starts to decay. An animation that ignores the input just to show an animation is called as a blocking animation, and this is something that you should always skip. For example, in this case, when the user clicks on the button and goes to the next screen, there's a lot of delay. If the user wanted to go and just change the thing in the next step, the animation playing would block the user's input, which is not the right thing to do, right? So depending on the different use cases that you have, keep the duration the way you want. Change the duration accordingly. For example, when we click on those install, whenever we install something, I just always want to press the next button, right? But and if there's some animation that comes all of a sudden in between that's blocking me from doing it, it's not really going to feel very well. Or when you click on the search bar, and if the search bar really animates in a very beautiful way and comes where I just want to just quickly type and get it done with, in this kind of a scenario, you would not want the user to wait a lot. But if in another scenario you want the user to read the information at the top first and then click on the next step, it makes sense to give the duration, to increase the duration. It also makes sense to increase the duration when you want to purposefully introduce delay to have the attention focused on any particular aspect. So that was about duration, right? And so far we've given examples and we've seen examples where we talk about the movement of one element on the screen, right? But what happens when multiple of these things are moving, right? If you follow all these principles that we've talked about so far, then things would just be very autonomous and move in the way they want to move, right? And that's where motion choreography comes in. Right. So the idea of motion choreography is you can derive it from choreography in dance, where you have a lot of different elements moving in the left, right, everywhere, right? But the director knows that where they want to focus their attention on. For example, this beautiful dance performance by Madhubala, all the background dancers was dancing individually, right? But then still, since the director wanted to focus the attention onto the lead actress, the movement that she takes is very different from the movement of the background dancers, right? And she is the one who's really taking the center stage, right? And that's what we should do with all of our animations. When we have multiple UI animations that are animating, we should we should design all these UI animations to feel very logical and related to one another. Right. Let's look at some of the ways. I'm not going to cover all of the ways, but some of the instances and examples to understand these. So, if there are a few UI elements which are supposed to be perceived similar, all these, the motion of all these objects should animate in a certain way. For example, the example that you see here, all these three are moving in a similar way, right? And they're animating. There's a little offset between each of them, which tells you that okay, this is the way they're animating inside, right? But the movement of all three is from the left, and they're coming from the left like that. Whereas the example that you see on the right, that all the three elements are coming from different directions, right? And the user is like, hey, this came from here, this came from there. Why is it so? I mean, like, do they perform differently? Are they different? Are their functionalities different? Do I have to swipe left for this one to go out? I don't know, right? So that's why if that is the objective, that these objects are similar, just the way we do visual design, we design the color or the appearance or the shape of the similar elements in a similar way. Just follow a similar motion for similar objects to tell the user that okay, these are going to perform or work in a similar way. So another way to do this, let's say you have a model in your application that comes up, right? And it comes and it animates from down below and it comes to the screen and stays there, right? It always makes sense to exit it from the place that they came from, right? which tells the user that whenever I want a modal on the screen, it would come from down below. That is where the modals live, in the modal land. And that's where our users would create this kind of a consistent mental model in their mind that, okay, whenever I have to invoke any modal, it would come from there, right? The example that you see on the right, if the modal is coming from down below, and if you click on it and it goes to the right, it would start feeling like, hey, did I do something wrong there? Why is it? Why is it not? Why did it go the other way, right? Why is that happening? Why is it going the other way? Did I do something wrong? So depending on the use cases. So for example, if you say that, okay, that modal will come, and if I accept it, it goes up, but if I deny it, goes down. You can design your animation in that way as well. Don't take this rule as a rule of thumb while animating things. Uh, another another way to really understand the motion choreography is by focusing on the focal element. For example, this while clicking on this button, it takes you to the amplified view. If that is the communication you want to have, then it makes sense to keep that focal element the same, and animate all the other elements accordingly, so that the focus is that, okay, this is the same object that was there on the previous screen, and this is what is getting amplified, or this is what's getting blown up, and that's why we're seeing this, right? So these focal elements really enhance the continuity by seamlessly transforming the appearance from one point to the other. And in this case, the header image is the focal element, and it remains visible throughout the transition when it was collapsed or when it was expanded. Right. So again, as I was telling you, whenever you're designing these interactions, design them on a case-to-case basis for whenever the transition goes very complex. Right. Let's look at this example here to understand this better. Right. This is an activity where I would want everyone in the comment section to tell me which of these three animations look really good. I'll be looking at all of your comments. Is it A, B, or C? Okay, Lottie India is saying B. Okay. What does everyone else say? B. Okay. A lot of people are saying B. See if there are any other different answers. Anyone who's, yeah, who differs. Everybody is saying B. Even Hemant is saying B. Surya is saying B. Gayatri is saying B. Okay. Let's see. Let's try to understand what is happening in all the three cases, right? B is the one that seems the most logical one. In this case, there are multiple elements that are moving simultaneously and in relationship with each other. And things were supposed to be there, and it's just showing their movement, that okay, this is moving from that place, and the designer probably knew that, okay, this is the initial stage where everything is this at their respective places, and then the end places here. But there is a problem with this animation, with the second animation. What is happening in this case is that while all of these are moving in relationship with each other, the individual elements are taking up a lot of attention, because the attention should not actually have been on the movement of these different elements, but just because we wanted to animate the first and the last stage, most of the focus is going there, right? The one that you see on the far right, there are multiple elements which are moving independent on the screen. Everything is animating one by the other. But what is happening there is that the focus is on bringing out each of the individual images, right? Whereas the one that we see on the left, what is happening is, in order to make change the focus from the core uh, from individual images and onto the main motion, which was the expanding of the car. It's really focused on that particular aspect of, or that particular purpose uh, of the animation, right? And while we may differ, all of our opinions may differ a lot in these three cases. Each one of these can be the right option, depending on the different UX issues that they are trying to solve, right? If the issue is to just focus on the attention, the first one makes sense because there's really less focus on the expansion and the changing of the images there. So good work, guys. Uh, Very interactive there. I think a lot of B answers I see there, right? The next thing is about the motion part, right? Again, I would like to ask you the same question. Which of these two options look better, or like feel better, or like what do you feel about these two, right? Or which one is the right one, the first or the second one? And if you answer real quick, then there are some awards, I believe, right? I think Shreya and Kashish have some interesting awards. It is. Yeah. What about the new example that you see on the screen? The first one or the second one? Which one is right? Is there a right one? You guys can see the example moving, right? The second one. Okay. Okay. We have two answers. No, we have three answers that people are saying the second one looks better. Again, if in this case, what is happening? Let's understand what is happening in the first case. The element is moving from in a very diagonal. It's taking a very diagonal kind of a path. In the second one, the path or the arc is it's more like an archic kind of a path. The line that is moving, it's arced, right? But the answer is really that both of these are correct. While the first one is expressing, I'll just play this example again. Well, the first one is telling you, is giving the feeling of a very simple and a functional app. The second one gives more emphasis and has a very dramatic style, right? But you can use any of the two. Both would be correct. The only difference is, right, the kind of motion, the kind of personality you want your app to have. That is the only emphasis, or the it would be very different in both these cases, right? So these were some of the interesting examples that I wanted to share with you. And that is about today's session. Thank you so much for attending today's session. I really hope you enjoyed the session as much as I did making it. I hope I was able to teach you something new. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions on how it went. You can also follow me on all these different channels, and feel free to connect with me if you want to know anything more about motion or Lottie. By the way, how once you've made these animations, these beautiful interactions, you can use After Effects. You can use Lottie. You can use After Effects. You can also use Figma to make these prototypes. But if you're using After Effects, this is the industry standard tool and one of my favorite tools to use. Um, there is a very easy way in which you can export your files and give it for development by using Lottie, and you'll see a lot of other sessions coming up where you learn more about how do we convert After Effects to Lottie, or these animations from After Effects to Lottie. Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you learned something new. I think we can have the presenters on stage.
Hey Harsh, that was a fantastic session that we had today. And I mean, did you guys see the way he had created his PPT? All of it had a hint of motion design. So
Really good motion in the presentation. It teaches in a right way, like where you have to focus in the presentation, so we can learn from it as well.
yep, yep. This is what is, I think, the biggest key takeaway from the session, that because the presentation was created that way, it was meant for a purpose to drive attention, to drive engagement, to capture your more and more attention. So we have a lot of questions, Harsh, for you. So we are going to be flashing the questions on the screens. And please help us to answer it for our audience. We have the first question from Asim. That is, hi, I want to ask how to convince product team and build momentum towards using motion design.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question I've seen there, and I think the first step, to convince the product team is to convince yourself to really, be the evangelist of motion within your organization, within your company. Um, One good way to convince them is to also help them understand the value proposition that motion is going to bring to the system. It really depends on the kind of app you have. If you have an app which has some users who don't know, who are not very much used to reading things on the app, it makes sense to introduce motion in those cases, right? So whatever is that, because with motion you can help them understand what is the next step. You can really guide them to do those things. So understand it from the perspective of the company that you're in, and help your stakeholders also understand the importance of motion and what it can help you achieve. It can also be, as we talked about, giving a personality to the app. If you want a particular kind of an engagement with your audience, if that's the personality that you're going for, that is the way you convince your stakeholders that, hey, this is the value proposition. Tell them about the purpose of why you're animating the different things that you're animating, right? And we talked about purpose, and you can take some of those examples, right? That it's allowing users to understand how to do things and when to do things and what to do.
Yeah.
So we have next question from Lavish. He is asking, "Hi Harsh, just wanted to know that how we can decide whether my apps need motion design or not. Like how you will find like it's it required or not."
Yes, so the answer to that question is really about how you design in general, right? When you design something, before you design something, you conduct some research, or you have some kind of a hypothesis that this is then probably an issue in my application. And uh, by talking to your users, you would actually understand that, hey, maybe our users are not able to understand this particular button or the functionality of this particular button, and maybe um, try finding out like whether you can solve it without motion or not, right? If you can solve it without motion, and if it's an easier way to do it, or less and still delightful enough, then maybe you don't need motion. But if there is no other way to teach them, then definitely makes sense to introduce motion in those cases at least, right? And when you're starting out, if you have enough cases, such use cases where you would want motion to help your users understand things, that's when you know there are a lot of UX issues that cannot be solved through any other way. Or even if it can be solved, you think that this is the right way to go ahead. That's how you identify whether you want motion or not. Just find that UX issue that it's solving.
Very correct, Harsh. I mean, even if you're using motion design in your product, it has to solve some problems apart from just bringing delight. And as product designers, we are also problem solvers. So even if you're deciding to use motion design, we should know the whys. And which brings us to our next question from Surya. Hi Harsh, I had a small query. If I have started learning Figma as a beginner, how can Figma help me to learn the basics of animation?
Actually, you're in a very right space if you've learned Figma recently. So Figma has some good prototyping tools, or that you can use in order to animate things. I use Figma a lot to start my initial exploration or some initial brainstorming, and only if it's needed, then I go to After Effects just to craft it very beautifully or in the right way. Figma has a lot of tools, and with the new updated with the new updates that Figma has launched, now you can also change the curves, the easing curves. You can also they've also introduced what Apple introduced long back, this mass, the spring, so the damping, all those things, and you can even make it more. Even from Figma, with Figma, you can do a lot right now. Right, the tool is really good to learn animation in itself. Just learn the prototyping part of it first, and then go into the depths of all of these things.
Cool. One more thing, like you can bring Lottie animations to Figma as well. You can try some predefined Lottie animations in Lottie website, and then you can test out like if this thing's good is good, and then you can try your own brand's aesthetic in that animation. So that is also really super helpful for us. Okay, let's
I
go to.
agree to you, Kashish. Just another point that I would like to add is animation. So Lottie animation also has there's something that I use very often to learn new things. Is that it has a lot of it has a marketplace where you can find a lot of free, at the same time you can find a lot of paid animations that people have made. You can simply download them and open them in After Effects and see and
Yes,
understand and learn from the example that you see there. Right, you can
yes,
edit it, you can change it, make it your own, and really learn by seeing how others are doing, and also by doing it yourself.
yes, yes. Yeah. Even I try to use that workflow sometimes when I want to learn how this animation is working. So I have also done that in my career. So moving to next question. So Shamruz have want to ask like, how do you hand off the motion specs to developers?
Right. So there are two ways of doing this. One way is the one that involves Lottie animation, and another is by another one. I'll detail the another one out later. This the first way is if you think that the animation is just going to start and stop, and it's just going to show the feedback. For example, let's say you have a like button that whenever you press the like button, it just the heart just pops out. If that is the use case, and if it's not following any other further interactions or further menus, you can use Lottie animation in those cases. In some other cases, you would want to use the you would want to do some CSS animation or the UI animation. There are a bunch of good tools out there. One that I can think of was developed by Google. It's called as I believe Space Time Inspector. What it helps you do is if you it converts whatever you've done on After Effects into the CSS version, and it also is a very good tool, I believe, to sign off, to give. What was the question again? Hand off, right? To hand off your animations to the developers. There is another tool by Google called as Direct, which is the most amazing. Which is an amazing tool, and I can't stop talking about it a lot. That tool is again an open source tool where you can actually visualize how different animations are happening. How what is like when we have motion choreography, or when we have multiple elements moving at the same time in different ways with different time durations, you can actually visualize how these things are happening, and it's very easy for the developers to also just take the visualization and make it in that way. So those are the two main, or two or three main ways of doing it.
Thanks, Harsh, for answering that. And we will take one more questions from the chat, and that is from Rebin. Will Lottie support all the effects in After Effects? I think he means if all kinds of transitions and motion design, is it supported in After Effects or not?
So currently, not all of the effects are supported in Lottie. For example, if you have those wave effects from the effects panel, right? A lot of those are not supported at right now. The ones that are supported are things like change in opacity, and you can actually find a. I mean, I think Kashish can help you with the
Yeah.
link here. All the guidelines. If you can paste the link in the chat, that would be great. Where you can find all the guidelines of what effects are available and what effects are not available. It's a long list, and depending on the different use cases that you want to use, wherever you want to use for animated triggers and all those things are mentioned there. Which ones are allowed, which ones are not allowed, which ones would be applicable in most cases, and which one would not be applicable at all. Those things.
adding to that, like even if you want to know what if certain effect is not actually applicable in Lottie, but if you want to still achieve that, there are some tricks and tips you can find on Lottie GitHub. So you can try to learn from that as well, and you can find a lot of things in Lottie India website and Lottie Files website as well. So do try and check out and let us know what you learned from those resources.
All right, that brings us to the end of our Q&A session. And thank you so much, Harsh, for having a fantastic learning session with all our audiences. And thank you to the audience who has stayed till the end of the session, because we are going to be announcing the two winners who have had maximum engagement in the session, have answered a lot of questions, and have kept the comments going. And those two people are Hemant and Shamruz. Congratulations to both of them. And Lottie Files is going to be reaching out to you for sharing the Lottie File
Yes.
goodies that we have for you. Yeah. So moving on, we would like to have your feedback for today's session. What else would you like to see? What is the feedback for us? What else would you like to learn from us? We are going to be coming back really soon. Let us know that you would like to see an offline session or more of online ones. What is the content that you're looking for? We are thrilled to be hosting you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, host. Thank you, Harsh. Thank you to Kashish as well for having a fantastic session today. And seeing everyone a very happy weekend ahead. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.